South Carolina moved their game to today, Sunday, to avoid the rain. Mac Brown, safe to say, took a little bit different approach. And he got all salty about it too. In the post game, he said, I'm glad we didn't move our game because you know what? There's going to come a time this fall where we got to play in the rain, and they're not going to let us move the game to Sunday. So I'm glad we got some wet ball stuff in today, and I'm glad we went out there and we weathered the elements. Side note, it also made the defense at times look like the '86 Bears. And that's something we don't see at North Carolina very often. So that was fun. But things are changing quick at North Carolina. I've asked the question all spring about them. How far could their front seven really come over the span of one spring? I think the answer is quite a ways. North Carolina looks like a different team defensively, and this is not strictly from spring game viewing. This is stuff their coaches and people inside and close to the program have been saying all spring long, and really even coming out of the season. They were saying, you wait till you see what they look like when this guy's healthy or that guy comes in or this guy does that. You wait till you see what they look like in the spring and then the fall of 2021. They seem really encouraged, and I think they have every reason to be encouraged. They've got more big bodies to rotate. And that means the younger guys like Javari Ritzy, for example, coming in, but Silver, Jones, they got a lot of really high caliber younger guys that they can bring in and they can work along and they can probably end up rotating them. A lot of those guys are going to play this year. They're not guys they have to lean on, though. Whereas if this were the case last year, they'd be bringing those guys in. They'd be starting week one, and they'd be so green that you'd just have vulnerability that you couldn't work around, even though you'd have a lot of young talent. Well, now they got a lot of mixture of young talent and veteran talent, and it's a really, really good look at North Carolina right now. Desmond Evans, there are some names. Desmond Evans is a guy who could blow up for them. He was a guy last year that the coaching staff was high on. Mac Brown talked about him. The coaching staff was high on him. Missed the spring and then ends up missing a lot of the summer, and then he got sick in the fall, and you just never got to see his 2020 get off the ground. And now they got him where they want him at linebacker, and he's got a chance to get a season off the ground. Him, Eugene Asante is another guy, looks ready to explode. These are future Sunday players now that North Carolina has on, not their offense. These aren't receivers. These are future Sunday players they have defensively. It's just not stuff that we've been saying about North Carolina very often. Running back is, if you want to circle some position groups, it doesn't look to be at the level that they want it to be. I'm sure they'd tell you, well, the format yesterday wasn't really inducive to us looking the strongest at that position group. I was over on Inside Carolina today. They had the stat. They had 37 runs yesterday from running backs. They had about 6 of them. They worked into the rotation. They averaged 3.5 yards per carry. So that either means we've completely turned the corner defensively, or we got some work to do at running back, or maybe this rain does have a little bit to do with the format and style of this game. So I have minimal concern. You notice I haven't even talked about the passing game. I have minimal concern about it. Got all the confidence in the world in Sam Howell. Good to see Drake May get some reps yesterday. He can come along, another one of those very talented newcomers that can take a season and learn and then be ready next year. They will be what they need to be offensively. Have very little doubt about that. But what I love is if you think about what North Carolina football is through the first couple of years under Mac Brown, and what it was before then. If you think about what it is, and then you think about it coming out of spring, and finally, seemingly the defense being where the spotlight is as opposed to the offense, Phil Longo's got to love that offensive coordinator up there. Because finally, he gets to preach. You know, when it comes to the pecking order of attention around here, you guys aren't necessarily a runaway number one at the moment. But yet, I think they'll be able to turn it on when the light comes on in the fall. But when you are starting to talk at North Carolina about being able to lean on defense a little bit, that's how you become a contender. That's how you become a team who doesn't need to be +4 in turnovers to have an outside shot of beating Clemson. You feel good about your odds. You're not going to be favored against them, but you feel good. If you go up against them, you feel good about your odds. And they should. I mean, that's a program tracking in as good a direction under still a relatively new staff. I think about them as still a new staff. I know they're a couple of years in now, but I still feel like things are changing there, and I still feel like the dynamics changing there to where people aren't used to it yet. I think if they follow through on the style of team it feels like they're putting together for 2021, if that comes to fruition on the field this fall, people talk totally differently about North Carolina football.